Hello, everybody, my friends from Podcast Movement University. I'm so glad to be here again this year. Last year I did a demonstration, something like the 10 things you can do to speed up your editing processes. This time I'm going to go deeper into how I would edit. I'm going to do this a little bit differently because I'm going to use just a specific DAW. I'm not going to use any outside tools or anything like that. I'm going to demonstrate how I would edit if all I had was the free multi-platform program Audacity. Audacity is used by most hobbyists, although Audition is the most popular used by professional podcast editors. So I'm not going to say that Audacity is the best. It's not the best. It's very easy to use. So if you're familiar with Audacity, this session will be helpful to you to maybe fine tune some of the things or find some tips and tricks to make your editing go a little bit faster. Plus, maybe teach you something new that you'll be able to use to make your audio sound better. I might even do a little demonstration how you use Audacity to capture audio, but I think everybody understands how that works in case you're doing like just a monologue session yourself. Before I get into it all, I'm Steve Stewart. I am from the Podcast Editor Academy. I also edit podcasts for a living. I started doing that in 2016 as a accidental fall into a new career, and I love it. Been going to Podcast Movement every year since we began. I have not yet been to an Evolution show yet, though, so I'm still considering that. But big fan of Podcast Movement, and we're going to be there again this year. Podcast Editor Academy is going to be doing a one-day mastermind session for people who want to develop a business plan on how to run a growing business. So it's going to be, finding your value proposition and your ideal client and partners to work with so you can create a business like I have. So if you're on the service side of podcasting, definitely I'll give you more information on that later. But Podcast Movement happening at the same place, same location, same dates. I really am excited to be there in Dallas again this year. In fact, I've been to this hotel once before for a different conference, and I can tell you more about that at a later date. If you're going to be at Podcast Movement, come see me. I'll tell you all about it. It's going to be a good time out in Dallas, Texas, August 23rd to 26th. All right, we're going to get into it. I believe we've got some people who are going to be joining us in the chat to ask questions. That means if you're watching, that's you. You're the people that's going to join me. Go ahead and ask your questions in the chat box. And if it's relevant to what I'm talking about, I'll jump on it right away. If not, I might be saving it for later. And I've got my volunteer, Shannon, who's running the show behind the scenes. She'll be able to get my attention in case something really bad goes on. And we don't want that. But hopefully I'll be able to perform something nice for you. So today's session I'm calling Learn Just Enough Editing to Be Dangerous. And that sounds like a good thing, but it also can be a bad thing. So to clarify what that means is learn enough about editing that you can do stuff, but the caveat is sometimes you can do too much and it can be bad. So being dangerous isn't just like, oh, I'm going to be dangerous, I'm going to take over the world. It could be also, wait, I just did something wrong and I can't recover from that. So when you're working with a DAW like Audacity, you have to keep in mind one thing. This is a destructive editor. At least currently in the state it is, it's mostly what's called a destructive editor. Meaning when you make a change, once you save it or once you export the file out, you can't make any more changes. You can't go back and undo anything. While you're still working on a project, you can undo stuff. You can undo a bad move, a bad edit. You could undo a bad compression, something like that. But it's going to be done. You can't make any changes once you've saved it or exported the file out. So you got to keep that in mind. And that's why this process that I'm going to show you today with Audacity might be a different workflow than others. And that's a big caveat here is anything I show you today, it's just like every other question in podcasting. The answer is it depends. The process that I'm using, is it right for you? It depends. Everything I'm talking about, the solution or the answer is it depends. It depends on many, many factors. It depends on the voice, the recording environment, the microphone, what's being used to record it. Is it a virtual service? Is it just a recording device I have here in my room? There's a lot of variables there. So we're going to get into some of those things as I go through a demonstration here. I'll say it's a quick one, although we're probably going to go for a good half an hour. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Shannon, if you want to bring it up for me. I'm going to bring in 2 raw recordings into a brand new Audacity project. And if you notice, I just dragged and dropped this one right in there, and I'll do it again. I just drag it in the window, pops it open. Real time saver. Anything you can do to not go up to the menu bar here at the top of the screen is going to save you time. And I might share you some tricks on that as well. But I just brought in these 2 raw recordings, and you'll see they're quite a bit different. This one on the top is the host, and this is almost like a local recording. The way they recorded this is pretty raw. And you'll see here in this area that I'm circling with my mouse, it looks kind of like there's some kind of a little forest fire, brush fire going on at the bottom of the screen, or the bottom of this track. Whereas the one below it, there's not much of that going on. But also, these wave forms look really small. And that's because this was recorded with a system that recorded on the host's side. This is the host is a female, and captures the guest side, who's a male in this situation, through Skype. This is a good old-fashioned way of doing it, and people still do it today. Not recommended, just saying it's done today. So we're going to try and tweak these things a little bit, and you should be able to hear my audio.
To an element of what's inside of that.
Hopefully you heard that. If you did, type in the chat, yes, I saw it, Steve. But we're going to go through this short piece. I know it's 24 minutes. I called it short. What a mistake. But we're going to go through this, and I'm going to show you how I would probably work on this if all I could use was Audacity. So the first thing you'll notice is these red lines here at certain points. What that's indicating to me is that the volume was so loud at these points that it clips. It hits the ceiling, meaning it's too loud. That's an indicator I want to keep on. I could turn that off in the viewing options. There's all kinds of viewing options here. Zooming in, changing the track size on the screen, the toolbars. Which toolbars do I want to see? But then there's this one here, it says show clipping. So I'm going to leave that on, but let me turn it off real quick just so you can see the difference. If I turned it off, there's nothing showing me that these are really loud, but I want to keep that on. Nice little trick just to keep you in the mindset that, hey, if it gets too loud, it's going to tell me here. I got to get rid of those red lines. Now, if I were to go through and do each one of these one at a time, and I'll zoom in real quick, and I have a keyboard shortcut that helps me zoom in quicker, then, I could do this and effect and amplify and reduce the amplification, and that would take away the red, make it quieter. But there's some tools in Audacity and almost any DAW that will take care of some of that for me. So I'm going to put that back the way it was. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to select this track, and I do that by going over to the track menu over on the left. I'm going to select this entire track. You'll notice I selected this whole track. The one at the bottom is not selected. Although you will see I've got these little clock symbols on there. What is that, Steve? Well, that's something you've got to know about. When you're editing an interview, you've got to keep the tracks synced together. That is, if you delete a minute from one track, you need to also delete the same amount of time in any of the other tracks to keep things in line. Otherwise, what we're going to get is, and I'll just show you, if I undo my sync lock tracks option, which is here in the tracks menu, if I uncheck this, you notice that those little clock symbols went away. Well, now if I delete all of this, all of the conversation that's going to happen after that is going to be out of sync. So let me delete that. I'm just going to hit the delete key. And now it's all out of whack. He'll be answering a question that was asked over here, but then she'll be coming in and talking about something completely different before he's even done. We don't want that. So I'm going to undo that change there. And if you want to know what all these tools are in here, I think I went through those in pretty good detail in the previous Podcast Movement University video, which you should be able to find in the archives. So let me go back to this two-person conversation, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep the tracks synced so you've got the little symbol there when I select things. That symbol indicates that those things are locked. So now I could even move the tracks and they stay locked together. But the first thing I need to do is go back to this first track. It's too loud. Plus, we can see, and I'm going to zoom in, there's a lot of noise. And this is actually a recording done from a New York apartment building. And if you know anything about New York apartment buildings, there's not much you can do unless you go record in your closet. And this person's not going to do that. So we're going to do a simple noise removal process. This is more of the audio engineering stuff. And I like to do this first. And the reason why I would do this first is because I don't want to do things, edits and things like that, and then go back and do some of the engineering stuff in Audacity, because I want to be able to hear what it sounds like when I'm done doing that engineering stuff. I want to be able to, when I'm making my cuts, I want to hear it the way it's going to be at the end. And if I have to make any changes, I want to do it while I'm doing the detailed edit of cutting out the ums and ahs. If I get the audio quality better, then I'll know exactly what it's going to sound like when I'm done with editing. So if I do the noise reduction first, I know what it's going to sound like, and I'm not going to have any adverse effects to any edits that I've made. Anyway, the noise reduction, and plus it gets the noise out of the way, so if I run any other processes, it doesn't also have to chew on the noise. So I'm going to go to Effects menu, and I'm going to go up to Noise Reduction, and click on that. Now this is a two-step process. You'll notice I've only selected about 15 seconds of audio here. This is 15 seconds of noise. And I'm going to click this Get Noise Profile button. And what that does is it tells Audacity, listen to this piece of audio. Now it just put that into memory. It said, okay, this is what Steve is telling me. Audacity is saying to itself, this is what Steve is telling me is noise. Now I want to take that noise out of this entire track. So let me zoom out. I'm going to select the track, go back to noise reduction again, and do the second step. And the second step here is to make the adjustments to the noise. I'm going to apply this noise reduction effect. So I've got some simple settings here. This is another one of those it depends moments where, hey, what's the right setting for my projects? Well, the answer is it depends. It depends on their recording environment, their microphone, the type of voice they have on what type of microphone, what was recording the system, all that stuff. So I'm going to hit OK here after a countdown of 3, 2, 1, and you're going to see the changes. You'll be able to see them here in the screen. You're going to see, in fact, let me cancel out of this. You're going to see all this noise, not all of it, but a lot of this noise is going to go away. So I've already got it in memory. I did the Get Noise Profile. Now the next step is to do step 2, take out the noise. So 3, 2, 1. Watch as all this noise kind of goes away. And there it is. It looks a lot better, and I'll tell you what, it sounds a lot better too. In fact, I'm going to undo this real quick. And I'm going to go and zoom in here. I'm going to mute the other track. So what we're going to do is just real quick, we're going to do some, I'm going to silence this audio so you can really hear the difference between noise and no noise. So listen to this real closely. I don't know if you can hear that. In fact, my microphone is probably picking up my air conditioning unit, so you might be hearing some of that. But there's a difference there, and you can even see it in the meters. However, if I go back and I undo that and I do the noise reduction, let's do it all over again. Noise reduction, Get Noise Profile, select the track. I'm going to apply that noise effect, the noise reduction effect to everything. Then when it's done, you're going to see it's different, and I'll play it, and you'll notice that when I play it back after it's done chewing on this, you're going to notice a big difference, not just in the sound, but also in the amount of sound. And now it's not picking up hardly anything. There's still room tone there. There's still something. There's an air in the air. It's a really bad way to say it, but there's a simple, like you can feel the presence is there, just ever so slightly. It's not dead silent. That's a good thing. In my mind, it's a good thing just to have a little bit of presence there. That way it's not going from talking to silence, to talking to silence, to talking to silence. It's just that on-off type switch of audio just is, it's distracting because it doesn't, the world doesn't work that way. Okay, so let's go back to the second step I would do if I only had Audacity. I've got this volume problem now with this track alone. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to go to Effects, I'm going to use the compressor feature. Once again, the settings, it depends. It depends. I know this client, I know what's going to be too much compression on her voice. So I've got a simple setting here. It's not even my favorite way to do this, but if it was only Audacity, this is what I would do. So I've got my settings. I'm going to hit OK and watch all these red lines up here go away. Here we go. Oh, excuse me. That's the next step. Did you notice they all got bigger? They all got bigger. In fact, if I put this back, and let me only do this section here. I'm going to redo the compressor effect. Just watch everything I've highlighted compared to everything else. You're going to notice everything that got highlighted. The lows got louder. The lows got bigger. And if I played it for you back to back, you'd notice the difference. So that's good. We've got the volume a little more level, meaning when she gets a little far away from the mic or quiet, this helps to boost the vocals. We can still understand her on our earbuds, in our cars, whatever we're using. But that's not the last step. In fact, I'm going to put this back. I'm going to redo that entire track with the compressor real quick. And then I'm going to go and do normalization. There's a normalizer in Audacity as well. I'm going to just set it to -3 decibels again. It depends. try things out, try it, different ways. You've seen me undo it with the undo key, or I've got a keyboard shortcut for it as well. You can make changes and undo them if you don't like them, and try again, try a different way. So I'm going to do this one. Watch what happens here to these red lines. 3, 2, 1. There, they all went away. They all went away. It's a lot more level, and the volume is good.
No, I agree if you're a finance nerd.
Okay. Now the problem is she's really loud compared to her guest. Let me unmute the guest.
The 15 minutes. You'd rather walk around the mall.
Okay, so we've got a big difference in volume here.
And so behaviorally,
it's a way smaller constituency, Paula.
So what do? I'm going to show you 2 more ways that you can adjust the volume differently than what we just did. So in here, I'm going to go to Effects and Amplify, and I can just simply let Audacity tell me, hey, this thing could be another 12 decibels louder. It's just telling me right now it could be 12. So I could do 10, not overpower it, maybe do it, and it's going to bring them a little bit closer. That's not bad. But Audacity now also has what's called a loudness normalization feature. And this could help you to bring it up to a certain LUFS level. I'm not going to go into LUFS here. I am not a audio engineer. That takes a lot of education, and I'm not ready to kind of go through all that. So I'm going to use the perceived loudness, and I'm going to bring it down to, actually I should bring it down to negative. I'm going to bring it down to a negative 17 LUFS. There's a reason it's not the standard negative 16, negative 19 or whatever. I'm just doing negative 17 because, again, it depends, and this client's audio needs it. And I'm going to hit that, and you'll see that it's going to be a lot better. There you go. I'll undo it and redo it. Ready? 3, 2, 1. There. You see that it's a lot louder. You can see it's a lot louder. Now, let's go back and play some of that, and you're going to hear they're a lot more closely volumized. Yeah, I'm going to say volumized.
I would try to name an anonymous caller, but I don't watch any media.
You don't watch.
I really don't.
You don't watch anything. No.
So there you go. It's a lot more balanced. They're a lot more in sync, a lot more together. However, slight adverse effect there when I did the loudness normalization is, if you see where my cursor is, these areas here, there's a little bit of noise. The good news is it's not a lot of noise, and it's only because I know this recording, and if I play it back, you're going to see I'm playing it back now. I can't hear anything. I can't see anything. Right now, it's just room tone. I'm happy with that. Now, there's one more thing we could do to help with the room noise, and this is something a lot of people, this is what we battle with. We're not talking about reverb or anything. We're talking about just the room tone and the room noise. There's a noise gate feature inside of Audacity as well, noise gate. So you can have a gate, and what a gate means is you're taking, it's not quite an on-off switch, but think of it as a gate. Let's say if, like, you got a white picket fence, on the outside of your house, and if you open the gate just a little bit, you can kind of squeeze through, or the dog through. But if you open it up wide open, then everything can come through easily. The UPS guy with his whole, trolley full of gear and stuff that you ordered from Amazon, he's dropping it off at your front door. He could come through the whole stack all in one shot. But if you close the gate a little bit, less can get through, and that's what a noise gate's going to do here for us. So I'm going to run this noise gate. I'm going to set it to a negative 28 decibels. I find that anything below negative 35 is pretty much, you don't need it, and you almost can't hear it. And, I am going to make it down. I'm going to make it 35 anyway. I'm going to make it 35 because I know what this client is like. So I'm going to do that. And you're going to see a lot of this room tone here also kind of get closed out. And there it is. I'll undo it. You can see it here and redo it. In fact, you can see the difference. If you can see the difference between these two areas. Now, I know that's not hearing the difference, and really we should be more concerned about what we hear, but you're seeing this demonstration through a live stream over the internet, and it's not going to be as clear on your end as it is on mine, but that's good enough. That's good enough for now. I've done enough to be dangerous, and I haven't quite destroyed anything, so that's good. The next thing we're going to do is talk about a couple of neat little tricks that are going to save me time. These are time-saving editing tips. So I've got my audio kind of conditioned the way I want. I could always tweak it a little bit more, but I'm going to move forward. I haven't done any damage. Everything to me sounds good the way it is. So I'm going to move forward with now editing out what I call the crap. And yes, that's an acronym, CRAP. The crutches, the repeats, the accidents, and the pregnant pauses. Those are the things that we cut out when we're editing a podcast. Audio conditioning, audio engineering was done first. Now we're cutting out the crap. So I'm going to find this area here. This client, she's very particular in how she speaks. She's going to speak and pause just like that until she knows what she's going to say next. And that helps to keep from having these accidents and these repeats and stumbling and stuff like that. So that's just the way that this specific client is. So what I have in Audacity is a tool called Truncate Silence. I love Truncate Silence, especially in this scenario. There's a lot of times where this person's speaking.
Budgetary shock of adjusting from.
You see what I mean? Well, let's adjust that here. We're going to do some automation. We're going to tell Audacity, hey, you know what? There's a lot of gaps here. I want to shorten the gaps. So I'm going to go into my effects menu again. I'm going to go to Truncate Silence. And what that means, truncate means to cut off or to shorten. And there's actually two functions within Truncate Silence. The first one is to truly truncate, meaning taking anything over a certain size and cutting it down to a specific length. So anything over, I'm going to say anything over 5 seconds. Now let's just make it 3. Anything over 3 seconds, I want to truncate it down to 1 second. And when I do that, any gaps that are over 5 seconds long is we cut down to 1 second. Exactly. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. So there it goes. I'm going to undo that so you can see it again. And you can see here, these are those big gaps where this one's not so long. So this one here, and I'm going to put a marker underneath there. So you can see this is going to be kind of an indicator to help you stay in track of what I'm doing. But I'm going to do that truncate silence. This is not going to change in size at all because it's less than a second long. And then I'm going to truncate silence down, everything above 3 seconds down to 1 second. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. So this stayed the same. Everything longer got cut off. Now that's one way to do it. Another way, I'm going to undo this. Another way to do it is to do it as a ratio. So I'm going to go to truncate silence. And instead of truncating it, I'm going to compress. This is another option here, is compress the excess silence. And what that means is I'm going to take anything above a certain length and anything that's louder than a negative 35 decibels. So, you know, if you got a lot of room noise and stuff, you might make it 25 decibels or whatever, because you don't really want to truncate room noise, but 30, 35, it's all pretty good. I'm going to leave it at 35. Anything above negative 35 decibels is considered noise or sound that we want to keep. Anything longer than 3 seconds, no, you know what, we're going to cut this down to a second. And no, I'm going to cut it down to 5. Anything longer than a half a second. This is actually a real life scenario that I would use this for. Anything longer than a half a second, I'm going to compress, and reason I'm going to compress it is because I want to keep her sounding natural. And if she were to stop and talk for an exact second and have a gap of an exact second in between, you know, it's just kind of robotic. I want to keep her speaking a little more naturally. So I'm going to cut the gaps down, but I don't want to make them all robotic. So I'm going to cut it down by 50%. So watch what happens to these. In this one specifically where I'll let the marker 3, 2, 1, even that one got cut down a little bit because it was longer than the, whoops, wrong key, sorry. Where is my truncate silence up? Here we go. Longer than half a second got cut down to 50% of the size. So if we had a 5-second piece of audio, it cuts it down to 2.5 seconds. If we had a 1-second piece of audio, it would cut it down to a half a second. It cut it down by a half. Or I could cut it down to 30% of the size. So 3 seconds would cut it down to almost 1 second. Let's do that now. 3, 2, 1. Those gaps all got a little bit smaller because I compressed it down to 30 seconds. So you can imagine in a situation like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and take both tracks. I'm going to apply my truncate silence. Anything more than 0.3 seconds long. This is dangerous. This is the dangerous piece because I may truncate things that I don't want to. Maybe I want a pregnant pause in there. Maybe, let me think about that. You know, that's one of those, things where you're thinking about something. You're trying to come up with an answer and you need that dramatic pause then you're undoing that dramatic pause by doing this feature. But I'm going to do this entire track. It's 24, let's see, what's the actual length? 24 minutes and 18 seconds. If I truncate anything over 0.3 seconds down to, let's just say 66%, we're just cutting it down by a third. Let's see how much time we save. 3, 2, 1. There. It's now 22.48 or 22 minutes 48 seconds. I saved about a minute and 15 seconds just by that one command that I did. Just that one. Let me undo it. So it's 24:18. Now it's 22:48. So we're talking about a minute and 30 seconds. Wow, a minute and a half. That's fantastic. And that's only a 23-minute or a 24-minute piece of the conversation. This actually goes on for an hour and a half. I'm only giving you a shorter piece of the audio. So, wow, that's a very unusual situation, but sometimes you can use that to your advantage. So let me put this all back. Now I do have a comment that says, could this make the audio grainy in some cases? I think we're going back to the normalization and the compression. If you do too much compression, too much normalization, too much loudness normalization, you could have adverse effects. What that could mean is it's not going to sound as clear as if you just, I like to step up to the bar and not, run into the bar, meaning I don't want to do too much. So that's why the answer to everything is it depends. Do a little bit, try a little bit more, see what it sounds like, try a little bit more. And if you're like me and you get clients who send you stuff on a regular basis, you kind of get to know what it's like unless they've changed their recording environment, recording situation, or gear. But yeah, you could definitely have it's definitely adverse effects if you do too much. That's why this is called Learn Just Enough Editing to Be Dangerous. All right, let's go into the editing piece of this. So now I've got this conversation. You can see there's still some gaps in here. In fact, let's do it again. You know that truncate silence feature that I had? It was 22.48. Let's do it one more time. 21:48. So, the 5 seconds gaps became 1.5 second gaps, and then I did it again. Those 1.5 second gaps got cut down to I forget what it is now. I'm doing the math in my head. More than a half a second or less than a half a second. Anyway, I can't remember. It tightened it up a little bit. Now there's going to be adverse effects to that. Pregnant pauses are going away, but it's all there. But we're going to start editing by playing it. I'm zooming in and out a lot. I realize that, and I don't warn you. I apologize. But let me go through here. It's real simple. We've got our sync lock tracks on. You can see by the indicator here, or when I select more than one track, the other track that I haven't selected is showing that symbol.
In the next 5 years should be kept in cache. Definitely 100%.
Pregnant pause right there.
5 to 10 years, you could go.
Okay, so let me zoom in. We've got some noises on this track that don't need to be there, plus this is a big gap, so I'm going to cut it down. We've got a mouth noise. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a mouth noise right here. It's this thing right here. It drives me crazy, but I do it too. It's just natural. So let me zoom out a little bit. We're going to delete that piece. And we have this breath. It's not too loud. But I think I could do a little bit more to it. And especially when you get the ones where they're like breathing heavily, like they're you want to fix the at least. So I'm going to go up to my effects menu and simply do an amplify effect. I'm going to de-amplify it. You don't have to amplify a sound. You can de-amplify it, meaning reducing the amplification. So I'm going to bring that down to like a -35. I could type it in here what I want. I could reduce it here by hand, typing with my computer. There's all kinds of things. I like -35. It's just what I do. And I'm going to bring it down here. Oh, I actually amplified it because this isn't very loud. So let's see if I do that. Yeah, I just reduced it a bit. And the reason I reduce the breaths and I don't do other types I reduce the amplification because I want the breath to be there. I need the pace. I need a natural sounding conversation. If I delete it, then all we're going to have is a conversation that talks like this, and there's no breaths, and it just keeps going. There's no stopping. It just keeps going on forever and ever and ever and never stops. And then all of a sudden the guest is talking, and they don't have any. Don't edit out the breaths. Leave them there. Let people be natural. I also don't want to silence it because as that sample that I gave you earlier when we did the noise reduction, if I were just to silence it and the other track as well, the on-off sound of audio. Think about this. You got somebody come in the room, they turn on and off the light switch. it gets to be really distracting. But if they were to have a dimmer switch and turn it up slightly and then turn it down slowly and turn it up slightly and turn it down slowly, not as distracting. It'd be annoying after a while, but you get the idea. So we don't want to silence things. We want to keep them sounding human. So a breath is human, but it's not obnoxious if we reduce the volume of it. So that's what we're talking about here with de-amplification of the bad breaths. I call them bad breaths because sometimes it gets to be that way. Another thing that I liked just to make sure everybody knows about, because this is a big deal, is if you're using Audacity, you have programmable keyboard shortcuts. There's already keyboard shortcuts that are defined and set up when you install Audacity on your computer for the first time. But once you have Audacity, even if you upgrade to a newer version, the keyboard shortcuts that you create come along with it. If you go to Audacity Preferences, now I'm on a Mac, and you'll see that this is slightly different on a Windows machine, but almost all of it's the same. I believe it's under the Edit menu. I think there's an Edit Properties feature here. I could be wrong because things have changed recently, but Edit Properties or Edit Preferences in the Edit menu if you're on Windows. Audacity Preferences is where I go on a Mac. You're going to see all this stuff here on the left-hand side, all these backroom settings. And what this is going to allow me to do is go to this keyboard option here. You're going to see all these features, all these effects and things that you can do inside of Audacity, making labels, looping, so the audio plays a specified piece of audio over and over again. There's all these things in here. And there's keyboard shortcuts showing on the left. But you can program those the way you want. Give me a second, I'm going to take a quick drink. Elizabeth, yes, there will be a replay once this is over. It'll be in Podcast Movement University at podcastmovement.com/university. I believe it might also be on YouTube, but Shannon will have to pop in here and tell you if I'm wrong on that. Here we go. We've got this section, and you can view this by tree, ignore that, by the name of the feature or the function, or by the key, meaning what key am I using for that keyboard shortcut currently. Now I'm going to try and find the feature that I want. Remember I showed you amplify? I use the keyboard shortcut of A for amplify because I use it a lot. And it's on my left hand. And because it's on my left hand, I don't have to take my right hand off of my mouse. I can keep it there and I keep my eyes on the screen. Once I've learned my keyboard shortcuts, they're in my brain, I know that A is amplify. So right now I'm going to search for amplify by name in the search box, amplify. And any feature that has amplify in it shows up. By the way, apply macro, that's something else I'm going to teach you in a minute. That isn't in there until you build it. And I'll show you why I mean in a bit. So amplify, I've currently got it set to A. If I wanted to change it, I could change it to Control-Shift-A by putting it down here. And I could set it to be Control-Shift-A. You can see it set here, and then when I hit OK, now it's changed inside of Audacity. So if I do Control-Shift-A, I'm going to do this with my left hand. My right hand's in the air. Control-Shift-A. There we go. It brought it up for me automatically. Now, I don't like that. I actually want to keep it the letter A because a single character key is a lot easier for me to use than trying to do some kind of combination. So I'm going to clear that setting and put it back to A. Boom. Now, if I hit A, there it is. It comes up. S is for silence. So if I want to silence all this stuff, boom, I just silenced it. Control Z, of course, is your best friend. That's undo. D is delete. Let me undo that. F is a fade out. Watch how the audio is still loud here, but then gets quieter towards the end. So because I use fade out a lot, I use F for fade. I'm fading it. There's all kinds of keyboard shortcuts you can create. So I have a list of keyboard shortcuts you can find. You just get in touch with me and I'll get that to you if you want. It's also going to be in my online course called the Audacity Workshop. But this is a free training, so let's not talk about that. So that's a few things you can do to help to speed up the editing process, get rid of the gaps with truncate silence, which you won't use very often, but in this situation, in this client, I use it all the time. It saves me a good, if it's a half an hour recording, it saves me, at least 10 minutes of editing. Believe it or not, it can save me that much. Actually, no, I'm sorry, 90-minute recording can save me at least 10, 15 minutes of editing. All right, so let's go back to this project. So we're talking about deleting. There are times when they're talking over each other. There are tricks that you can use to make it so that the human ear can hear you better, or I'm sorry, can hear all the conversation better just by moving the tracks a little bit. But you don't want to move them too much because it don't sound natural. And if you move things around, guess what? Things get out of sync further on down the timeline. So let's go here and see if there's something I can do. I'm going to leave a marker here so I can remember if this is the track I wanted.
Anywhere other than Vanguard is because
I don't even like them at Vanguard anymore, Paula. I don't like them at all.
Joe has
Okay, let me scroll this to the center of the screen. That's not too bad. He's interrupting, and that's kind of the banter that's going on. And that's good. That's good. So we want to keep this section here. We're going to keep that in line. But there's no reason for me to wait for her to put in her rebuttal. But I kind of need that breath because she's laughing. And to go from, in fact, let me use a bad case scenario. So I'm going to undo my sync lock tracks. I'm just going to delete this piece of audio right here. And I'm going to solo her so all we hear. It doesn't sound natural because she's laughing and all of a sudden she's talking.
Joe has very strong.
It's a little bit abrupt. I'm going to put that back now. So I want to keep that breath. And I want to de-amplify it because it's a little bit loud. So I'm going to use my amplify effect. I'm just going to bring it down to -35. I don't know why. That's just the number I picked and it sounds right to me. But I want to move this forward in the timeline. Here's where things get tricky and you can screw things up. I'm going to select this piece of audio here. I'm going to copy this to my clipboard. Just like in Word. You're going to copy with this or Control-C, whatever you want to do. So now I've copied it to my clipboard. I'm going to now delete it. But when I delete that, let me zoom out a little bit. All this stuff down here, she's going to shift forward, but he's not. It's going to be out of sync because I turned off the sync locks track feature. So I've copied this to my clipboard. I'm going to delete it and watch what happens. It's gone. But I want this overlap right here. I want these to overlap because I want him to say his thing and then she comes right back.
Paula. I don't like them at all.
Joe has very strong feelings about target date funds.
Okay, there you go. That's a lot of fun right there. And it's not like she's waiting to say what she's going to say. But remember, they're now out of sync down here by that half a second or second that I cut out. But it's in the memory. It's in the clipboard. So I'm going to go to another spot inside the recording after where I did that. This is where I did that edit. I'm just going to go right here. No reason, just because that's a spot. And I'm going to paste that piece of audio that's in the memory only on her track, which then pushes everything from this spot over to the right. Let's paste it. Watch what happens. 3, 2, 1. There's that audio that I copied to the clipboard. And now everything's back in sync. But there's this audio that I don't want to keep that there. It's out of place. It doesn't belong there. So what I do now is I turn on my sync locks track feature. Now I've got both tracks selected and now I can delete them both and it keeps everything in sync. Let me do that again a little bit faster. I've got this audio I don't want. I'm copying it to the clipboard. I'm turning off my sync feature. I've got this copied to my clipboard, so now I'm going to delete it. I'm going to set it over here. Then I'm going to delete both tracks. Boom. That way there's a little more overlap, or I can adjust things because maybe he came in a little too soon. I can also take some of this dead air from back here, copy it, delete it, paste it up here, and it pushes everything back further so that she finishes what she's saying, he starts to speak, and now anybody should be able to hear the difference or at least understand what they're saying.
Other than Vanguard is because most...
I don't even like them at Vanguard anymore, Paula. I don't like them at all.
Joe has very strong feelings about...
There you go. That's good. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. I don't understand why your screen is blank, but the recording will hopefully be there for you and it'll be clear because it looks like it's clear on our end. All right. Let's see. Only a couple more things I think I need to show you to keep things simple and give you a couple of tricks that you can use to speed up your editing process and make it better. Like that moving the stuff around a little bit always helps when they start talking over each other. Sometimes you just got to move it a little bit. Even 0.2 seconds can make a big difference in the listener being able to understand what they say. It's amazing what the human brain can perceive when it's listening. You know, you're in a cocktail party and you've got 100 people around all talking, and somehow you can still understand the words of the people around you. even though everybody's talking at the same time. Pretty interesting. Another trick you can do there too is if things get too loud by one person when they're talking at the same time, reduce that by a couple of decibels. I'm going to reduce that by just 3 decibels. It's going to make one person louder and one person quieter, but somehow the brain can perceive what they're saying a little bit better. Let me play this bit for you here.
So
tell you-
that's why I like Vanguard's target date funds.
Okay. It actually wasn't too big of a problem, but let me go ahead and redo that de-amplification thing. And I think you're going to notice, since what she was saying was content and what he was saying was just about to interrupt, I think it's best that we de-amplify him versus her.
That added workload. So
tell you-
that's why I like Vanguard's target.
And somehow that just makes it a little bit better because I don't have 2 loud people in my ears. I've got one normal volume and then I've got another person who's a little bit quieter, and I was like, okay, well, I don't need to understand what they're saying. I just know that they're about to jump in. Everything you do here depends. This all becomes the art of editing. That's where the you have to make a decision. What sounds right? What works best? Don't do too much, because sometimes it can get to be a little bit too much as we go through this. Now, this is only the interview. And I might only want to edit part of the interview. Like in this situation, what this recording normally is, it would be a 90-minute track. And they are answering listener questions. They do about 3 or 4 in a episode. So when I get, 30 minutes in, I've finished, editing the first question and answer bit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to not risk anything. I'm going to export out that piece of audio that's done, because it's a full segment. And I can save that piece to put into an entire project and assemble everything, all the pieces together later. So let's pretend like, let's see, I think it's actually, I'm sorry, I thought I had it labeled before. Let's just pretend like right here is where everything up to this point now has been edited. I'm going to select all of that. I'm going to zoom out. I've got my cursor. I'm selecting everything from that point up to that point. This is the point where if you export this out and save your changes, it's done. So make sure you're done. I'm done. So I'm going to go to File, Export, and I've got all these different exporting options. I can export as MP3, I can export as WAV, but I really want to export only the selected audio. If I did these other pieces, it'd be exporting everything, and I only want the first 10 minutes here. So I've selected the first 10 minutes with my cursor, and now, I've selected the first 10 minutes with my cursor. File, export. I'm going to export the selected audio, and here we'll just do part 1, and we'll throw it onto my desktop as a WAV file. Because it's uncompressed, I'm not going to convert it until the end. I'm going to just do it all in WAV, convert everything to an MP3 at the very end when I've got all the pieces, the music, all that stuff. So I'm going to throw that into my desktop, and you'll see it's right here. And if I bring that into this current track, you're going to see that it's only the first 10 minutes. It's only this area that I selected. That's what's been exported. Oh, look at that. There's some points that are too loud. So I would have probably caught that those times when they're talking over each other, or, she has a very loud and distinct laugh, and sometimes it peaks, but when you combine it with somebody else talking at the same time, it gets too loud. So I would catch that. So let me get rid of this piece again. I can do that simply by clicking this X. It'll take care of this track. Gets rid of it for me. Or I could put it back in. Or I could delete it, put it back in. And the undo button is your best friend. But now I've got all this done. I'm done. But maybe I want to save this session. It's always a good idea to save your session. And I should have started off the whole thing like this. I'm going to go and save this session, because what I did was I exported out the audio and it's done. I can't do anything unless I save this session. So I'm going to File, Save. This project hasn't been saved yet, so either I save project or save project as. It's going to do the same thing, but right now I'm going to save it as PMU sample 1. I'm going to save that to my desktop. And you will see it's right here. And there's actually, you're going to see there's 2 tracks here. And it's only because this is a temporary file. In fact, I'm going to close this real quick. I'm going to close it, and you're going to notice that that little one went away here. Now, if I open this up again, it's all still there. In fact, that first 10 minutes I selected with my cursor, the cursor and the selection remained. Everything is back the way it was. So if I had to take a call, if I had to go to lunch, get the dog out for a walk, whatever, I can save my progress and come right back to it, even if I close out the project. So I could go back and do some more editing here if I really wanted to. Let me do this. I'm going to delete that piece. First, I'm going to zoom out. Here's my entire project. I'm going to delete this. Now I can work on the rest of it. When I'm done with that, again, file, export. I can export everything or the selected audio. I haven't selected any audio, so I've got my options there. And then when I'm done with all the pieces, let me show you what it's like to put a whole entire track together. I'm going to pull up this one that I finished the other day. Here we go. And this is going to be a little confusing if you don't know what we're doing here. And just so I can give you a little bit more value in this, you can change the width of these things just by simply dragging where this yellow bar is between the tracks. I selected the track, and that's where the yellow bars are surrounding it. But if I just get this bar right here, I can change that. I can also come over here to the left, and you're going to see a little X show up here or at the top. So I've got a dual view going on. I've got the wave file, which is blue, and I've got the spectrum view, which is kind of like a heat map. You can see things get louder. They go from red to white when they get really loud. You can see there's a lot of white there. It's vibrant. It's loud. But if I go over here and click on this X, then this part of the view goes away. Nice, huh? Let me zoom out to the entire project. And if I want it back, I can just do this. I get this double arrow thing and start to pull up from the bottom. Or I could even pull it down from the top, and now the red's on the top. Crazy stuff. You can also change the view from here. Spectrogram, multi-view, and it is already currently in waveform, so I can't select waveform view, but that's just a couple of neat little features to, get the real estate the way you want it to. I've only got so much real estate on the screen. I've actually increased the resolution so you can see it a little bit better at home. The icons and everything are a little bit bigger than what I normally work with because I want you to be able to see it on your side of the screen. But you'll notice that there's all these pieces, and I've got them here on the first 3 tracks. I just like to keep it all together. I don't like to have track 1, track 2 below it, track 3 below that, and all the way down to track 16, where I have to scroll all the way down, through a view. And I like to see it all here. It's all organized. I can see it all, and I can also leave myself labels and reminders for where we are at in this project. So let me show you the folder that contains all of these pieces, and that's here. In fact, let me just make it easier for you to see. So that's this thing called segments. This is the folder for the episode. This is the segments, and these are all the pieces that you can see in this project above. There's all these pieces. The introduction to the show, the question by the listener, they call it in on a voicemail line, the answer, blah, blah, blah. And then I just brought them all into this project and rearranged them by moving them around like this, putting them in the right place. Maybe they overlap a little bit where the music's playing. This client has ad breaks that we insert dynamically, which means the ad is actually uploaded separately. It gets inserted and it gets taken out automatically after a certain time or a certain number of plays, and then they can insert a different ad. So I just have a little place for it to go, and I just keep track of it with my little labels. All this stuff is one full episode, but I can still go back into this project and make changes. If I had to go back and make a correction, I could still do that. I've edited the pieces. In fact, I found a problem with this specific one. I was told there was something missing, and sure enough, I had made a bad edit. Something happened, and about a minute of the audio was cut out. And I was like, well, let me go back. And I found where, I don't know what happened, but I was able to go back, put it back in, put the right piece in, and export it out. I got it done probably in about 5 minutes. Fortunately, it wasn't like I had to hunt around and try to figure out what happened. I was like, whoa, what happened? So this is all now saved as a project, and now I can export out the entire track as an MP3. If all I had was Audacity, I'd probably just do it this way. I'd put it out on my desktop just so it's easy for me to find. My desktop, I keep it clean. Anything on my desktop, it's kind of like my inbox. It's like, this needs your attention, Steve. Don't forget me. I'm going to do it as an MP3, constant bit rate. That's best for all devices. Don't go variable, go constant. 96 kilobytes is probably all you need For spoken word content, if you have music or you're doing stereo, I'd move it up to 128. If it was only music, I'd go up to 320, but that's a different discussion. And then I'm going to export that out to my desktop, which let me go ahead and cancel this. I'm going to show you how it shows up on my desktop as an MP3 file, export MP3. Here's my name. I can say testing for PMU, and I'm going to throw it on my desktop. And there it is. It's exporting out as an MP3 right now. And that's what I'll upload to the media host and schedule out for my clients. Okay. I think we've gotten a couple. Yeah, we had the questions, I think, already answered. This replay will be available. It'll be fantastic. And podcastmovementuniversity.com. I'm sorry, podcastmovement.university. No. Shannon, I'm getting tired, so I'll need to hop in here and take me out. You have to hop in. But Shannon's in the back room taking care of things for us here. But podcastmovement.com/university is where you can find this replay. And if you have any other questions, ask now, because I don't want to leave you hanging with going, oh, Steve, I want to ask about this one thing. What do you know about, I didn't even go through the Find Zero Crossings feature, which is a life changer, because it's a really hard example to demonstrate. It's very hard to demonstrate, but it's a game changer. Go to YouTube and find that one if you need to. Okay. Ultra Running History says, thanks, well done. Learned some new tricks. Good, I'm glad. My whole purpose for this is to teach you some tricks that'll make the audio better or sound better. And then, of course, give you some tips to save you some lifetime. Because, I mean, when I first started editing, I didn't know any of this stuff. And now I can do stuff in about 2.5 the length of the audio. They say the average length that you spend going through and editing audio is about 4 times the length of the audio. So if you get an hour-long recording, it should take you 4 hours to edit. I can get it down to 2.5 or 3 now, especially for the clients that I've had for a while, because I already know what's coming up, what's going in for that. So any other questions in there, let us know. Thank you, Julianne. Appreciate the comment. I'll take another couple questions here if you got them. Otherwise, just remind you, this is a feature of Podcast Movement. Podcast Movement in Dallas is happening August 23rd through 26th. I can't wait. I've been to every single one except the Evolutions on LA. I could never get out there, but I've been to every single Podcast Movement. I just love it. If you haven't been, man, you're going to love it. If you're on the service side of podcasting, meaning you like to provide services to podcasters. You might be a podcaster yourself, but maybe you edit for other people and you want to make more of a career or even a serious side hustle. How do you know what your value proposition is? How do you find ideal clients? What can you bring to the table and be able to get these clients to pay you what you're worth as you start a new side hustle in this? Well, we got a 1-day workshop. This is something that I'm doing with my business partner, Mark Deal, in collaboration with Podcast Movement. It's the Podcast Editor Conference. It's going to be a 1-day mastermind, and we're going to be walking people through how to create a business model. Ask any editor what they need more than anything. It's either I need more clients, or I don't know how to run my thing as a business. The business side isn't something that we think about. This is that. This is all of that. So if you can, get your butt to Dallas for our 1-day event. It's only on August 23rd. It's going to be there in one of the big rooms. Even though we don't need it, we're going to keep this a small room feel, because this is a mastermind event. We're going to be talking to people in small groups. We're going to be going through this process, building our business models. And I'll tell you what, once I've gone through the business model process, I felt so much better about what I was doing as a career. There was not as much of a question as to what is this business. You can find more about that at podcasteditoracademy.com/conference. There'll be Shannon will bring this up here at the bottom, the URL for me, podcasteditoracademy.com/conference. And then we've got Podcast Movement following the evening kickoff party is that evening on the 23rd. So you'd go from our conference, which you register at podcasteditoracademy.com/conference. And then you can go up to the evening party. And then, of course, it's all networking after that. That's what I love most, is hallways, hanging out, going to the expo hall, doing some sessions, staying out way too late, getting up way too early, and just exhausting ourselves before we go home after the 26th. So please go to podcastmovement.com to secure your ticket for Podcast Movement, or podcasteditoracademy.com/conference. You'll see it in the comments if you want to join us for our one-day mastermind leading into all that stuff. And we do have scholarships. I should probably remind you. Yeah. If you want a little bit of financial assistance, what's wonderful is our sponsors have pretty much covered all of the expenses we need, to the point where we're able to give away some tickets for free. We're going to award some scholarships, which means you won't have to pay for the one-day mastermind. Go to podcasteditoracademy.com/scholarship to apply for that. That's August 23rd, 2022. It's the only time we're doing this. It's going to be a small group of people. It's going to be life-changing. I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. Anybody have any questions? This is the last chance. Last chance. Otherwise, you'll be able to just find me at Podcast Moment, right? All right. Thank you, everybody, for letting me be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. And any more questions, you know where to hit me up, right? At Podcast Movement in the Facebook group, or I'll see you at the event in August in Dallas, Texas. Bye, everyone.